Hey, before we get started with this episode, I did promise a couple listeners that I would talk about this, and I totally forgot to do it during the episode, so I'll say it now. There is kind of an after-show review / discussion / hangout that goes on, I believe, every Wednesday with some listeners on our forum. So if you want to join them, they go into our TeamSpeak channel, and let's see, what time is it at? It's 7 p.m. Eastern. So Eastern time. So for you guys out there who want to talk about Final Fantasy, talk about the show, anything like that, be sure to join them. Our TeamSpeak information can be found on the forum, of course. So get on that on Wednesdays and enjoy the show.
From Provo, Utah, this is the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. With your hosts, Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss. This is Ultima Final Fantasy.
Welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the ultimate Final Fantasy podcast. I am your host, Caleb.
And I am your other host, Joe.
And today we will be having a very special guest on the episode.
Yes.
We're going to be interviewing Daniel Burke. He is one of the foremost members of the Beacause Project, a years-long retranslation of Final Fantasy VII in its original form. He's done all sorts of stuff with the menu, obviously the translation, smoothed out the game. It looks great. So we're going to be interviewing him a little later on in the episode for obviously the discussion
in like
portion.
a couple minutes.
Yeah, later on, quote unquote.
It's basically going to take up the whole episode, so we are going to be skipping the news and the question segment. But of course, we'll continue questions from us to you.
Right, and as always,
this is our very first interview.
It is, yeah. It's kind of exciting, and I think it went well.
Our very first interview. Like, we've had guests on the show, and we've kind of interviewed them.
Yeah.
We've had Mecha Messiah, and we had Banjo and Krinital and Artiforian, or Shuri, I think is what he's called in the forums.
Yeah.
And those were great. We've never actually interviewed someone.
Yeah, so this is a first.
Like,
first time.
Yeah. Feels like the first time.
Yeah, it hurts a little at the in the beginning, but then after,
it gets better. It gets better. It starts to feel good.
It does, yeah,
And
classy.
He was very gracious, and it was great. It's a great interview. So,
yeah, it was a lot of fun. And of course, you can check that out and everything else that we've ever done, especially me and 12, on our YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/Ultima Final Fantasy. You can follow us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy, and donate some money to us on Patreon.
Yeah, we have a new patron named Mike.
We do. Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Who gave us $1.
And he will get the episode early, yeah.
Perfect.
That's all we want.
If everybody gave us $1, it'd be a wonderful world.
It would, yeah. It would be fantastic. We wouldn't feel bad about people giving us more. It would be... it'd just be
there
beautiful.
is a certain amount of guilt that comes when people donate a lot. You're
yeah.
Like,
oh my God, guys.
I would never do that. But thank you so much.
Yeah, that's just search Ultima Final Fantasy. I think it's Patreon.
But they do get cool rewards for donating.
It's true. There's some cool swag.
And Chocobo Chica, your stickers are coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
They're coming. But there's also the Twitch, which we had that recent contest on for the gift card to get 2 months of Final Fantasy XIV. Now, the guy who won it was, I think it was Dr. Roxo. He didn't actually want the gift card.
Okay. So we'll have another contest sometime in the future?
Yeah, to some extent. And we'll get them that between now and 14. But check out the Twitch thing anyway, because it's fun.
So where are you in 12 right now?
I am doing, I'm in the Cataracts at Ritterana. I'm down in the basement. I'm basically level grinding, and you have to kill enemies to get these little black orb things, which, by the way, the most annoying fucking thing in this game so far has been this. I'm killing all these dudes. It's like an orgy of death and undead coming out of every nook and cranny of every orifice in this place, right? And these little orbs drop, and I need these orbs, but they won't fucking grab the orbs because they're like trying to attack. They're getting pushed out of the way by enemies. And I'm like, it's a fucking orb. And then it just floats away. It just like goes. And I'm like, you fucking orb. It's the worst, man.
So
it
sorry.
is so bad. But yeah, so you have to get about 100 of those, something like that, to unlock all of the levels. But I've already done that, so it's not too bad now. But when you go down there, oh man, it is sick. Like,
when you go down, it's just...
When you go, yeah, it's nasty. It's unclean. It's this dirty little area down there, and it really is, though, in the game. But you go down, and the first floor, it seems cool. You know, there's nothing, and then suddenly it's like, you know, the Flight of the Valkyries tunes in, and then like frogs, yeah. These just frogs come endlessly. It's like... And it's brutal. So it's a great place to level up, and the Ixion hunt is down there as well. So I took Ixion out, and I think I have about, I want to say 3 or 4 hunts left in the game. So I've been doing a lot of that, and this area is fantastic for grinding, which of course not as, well, more fantastic, but less...
less fantastic.
I'd say it's more fantastic.
It's more
I'm getting
efficient
than yours.
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's talk about your...
But less
level.
fantastic.
Yeah, you could do anything while yours is going.
Okay, well, for some of you guys who've been listening for a while, or perhaps just listen to our review episodes...
Yeah. Come on.
You guys out there. There was something in Final Fantasy IV Complete Edition that I did. And it had to do with killing a monster that was continuously summoned, but never attacking the monster that was summoning it, and having that on auto, which you can do in the Complete Edition of Final Fantasy IV.
For the PSP, of course.
You can repeat all what you recently did with your battle.
Right, it's memory, cursor on memory, and then auto battle, aka bullshit. But...
There's something very similar in Final Fantasy XII in the Shrine of Miriam?
Still Shrine of Miriam, yes.
Shrine of Miriam. And I got all the way to Arcadia in my game, and then I decided to do some leveling up, and so I went back to the Still Shrine of Miriam, and actually right now, I am playing the game. Like, there's another me...
Some alternate universe Joe is hating life right now.
Continuously grinding... in the Still Shrine of Miriam over and over and over and...
Right, so what you have to do is you have to clear all the enemies in a certain area.
Yeah, to get the rare game.
And about half an hour in, you have to wait 30 minutes after killing everything. And then you go back into this area and he spawns. And you set your gambits to attack an enemy less than 1,000 HP. And you've got a bunch of decoy things. Is it 8,000?
You're gonna get him killed.
Yeah, less than 1,000, just... brutal. But yeah, and then they just attack the little zombies that the guy summons.
Yeah.
And it does that all day.
So it's I got double XP on my dudes, and then on my secondary party I have double LP on. And yeah, things are going quite well.
Yeah, he doesn't have to play
almost filled out the license board overnight.
Yep, it's pretty sick.
And I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot on the Final Fantasy XII review episode.
Perhaps this will make 12 a little better in your eyes.
Perhaps. It might be...
a little less brutal,
it might be less brutal. Oh, it's definitely less brutal right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Was it like 20, 30 levels you've got? I think it's 30 almost.
30 overnight, yeah. Something like that.
So about 12 hours. Like 12 or so hours of 12 for 30 levels. Now, in my area...
it's not cheating, man. I did nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's cheap, but it's not cheating.
It's cheap, but it's not cheating. Yes, this was an argument that we had way early on in this podcast. What was cheap versus what was cheating? That's cheap.
It's really, really cheap. It's like penny horror cheap, but
it's not cheating.
It's not cheating. The game allows it. And 12 really allows it because there's no bullshit complete edition of 12 that just like plays the game and jerks you off at the same time. It's just this version and it lends itself to that.
Well, I got you for the jerking off.
Yeah. Or the controller with the insane vibrations.
I'm not sure if we said this, but for everything else, you can go to ultimatefinalfantasy.com. Please join our forums. Please say that. Please join our forums.
Yeah, we've got a few new members recently. Not a whole lot of posts from them. They're kind of lurking, but that's cool too, I guess. It's more weird to lurk on a forum than it is on Twitch, I think.
You think so?
I do, because like the Twitch, I don't know, with the Twitch though, my face is up there, so it's a little weird. But
Hey,
with the
guys.
forums, it's just like you never hear from them, and then you look, and they're always online.
See, I always check more than I respond on the forum.
Yeah, you're the lurker of us.
I am a lurker, but that's because, I'm usually checking on my phone, and I don't really want to respond on my phone. I'd rather respond when I'm on my computer.
I like the phone respond because there's no the quick reply on the computer. It's like the one that's right below the thing when you type it out, and then it's like, or no, it's post reply, and you need to hit quick reply. I hate it. But, well, you ready to get to this?
Yes, this interview with Daniel Burke, which we actually recorded last week after some scheduling conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to play that recording. We'll talk afterwards. All
right, let us do it. So we are here today with Daniel Burke. He is one of the leaders behind the Beacause Project. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Daniel.
Basically I've I joined a forum called quim.com a long time ago now to fix up part of the game, and pretty soon after that it became a full-blown project to retranslate the entire game. And I met up with a Japanese speaker, and basically that's it. From there on, that was it. That was basically it. Was just a lucky run-in with somebody who had as much passion as I did to change the game. So that's good.
So you weren't the one who had to learn Japanese. You had a partner with you.
Yeah, well, that's been the reason why it took so long to complete, because if you add up all the time that it actually did take to complete it, then I reckon you're looking at maybe 6 months, which is pretty average for a game that size. It's kind of the time frame you'd expect. But because I have to rely on a Japanese speaker, we've had to liaise over 2 time zones. He lives and works in Japan. So that's been the challenge. That's the reason why it took so long. It's because obviously you can't. I mean, if you can speak Japanese and you can localize, then you can just get on with it in your own free time. You're not waiting on anybody, and it's much faster that way. I wouldn't say that you end up with a better product that way, because obviously he's been able to put his own flavour on the dialogue. Mm-hmm. He's translated it. He's put his own flavour on what a particular scene. It was disjointed. It was that wasn't his job. His job was to translate it. So he put his own little flavour there, and then I took that and refined it and localised it, and then we went back and forth over the maps. God knows how many times, because certain things you can go through it 10 times. And you still end up the 11th time coming along and thinking, you know what, that might not actually be what they were trying to get at. And then I've got to go back to him, ask him again. And he says, you know what, you're right. That isn't the way that's supposed to be done. And that's exactly how we operated.
All right. So what was the one thing that set it off? That, I mean, I assume I would say Beacause, that part of the game, but yeah, I mean, who knows?
Well, the catalyst for what started pretty much everything. I mean, when I joined the forum, it was all to do a walkthrough, a story-based walkthrough. I'm starting actually probably very, very soon, probably Monday, definitely next week anyway, because I'm finally at a stage now where I can do that. And that was all it was for. It was to do that. And when I started doing that, I realised the translation was worse than I thought. I mean, I'd played through Final Fantasy VII 4 times before that, PlayStation, obviously, mostly, and then I got the PC game. But I just wasn't prepared for how bad it actually was. I mean, I mean, you can go through that game 4 times and your brain fills in the gaps, but when you're specifically looking at the story and it falls apart. I mean, it really does. The more you analyze it, the worse it becomes. So then I met up with somebody who knew a little bit of assembly, and we were going to start translating. Well, the idea was that I was just going to quickly fix up a few of the bigger issues, like, this guy is sick and, all that nonsense. So that was the idea behind it. Well, PC had already fixed that, actually. The PC version actually fixed that line. And fixed a few of the other ones, but it left the vast majority was exactly the same. So I got the guy who knew a little bit of assembly, and we started to increase the width of the battle menu so that we could fit in, for example, Thundaga, which didn't fit. And that's how it all started. It started and then of course it became a project to fix the menu, because the menu was also broken. And before I knew it, that's it. I was locked into a battle with Final Fantasy VII, a battle that I've recently been winning, but it's been it's been beating me for the last few years.
When were you first introduced to Final Fantasy, or Final Fantasy VII in particular?
Almost immediately when it came out, which was it was December 1997. It would have been, because we got the game later than you guys did. I'm assuming you're American.
Yes.
Yeah. You sound American. I think we got it. I don't know how many months later we got it than you, but I'm pretty sure we got it sometime after you. It was on the shelves in Britain, I think, December 2007.
Yeah, it came out in September for us.
So I know it was even earlier for Japan, I believe, January.
Yeah.
It was on the shelf, and the only reason why I bought it, well, I didn't buy it, my uncle bought it for me. I don't know how old I would have been then. Not old enough to have a full-time job anyway. But so I went into a shop around, the shop used to be called Electronics Boutique. It's recently been bought out by a company called Game. And I went in there with my uncle, and he was like, yep, whatever game you want in here, I'll buy it. Very kind guy. And the reason I chose it was because it looked like it was the biggest game. It had a huge case. That was the only rationale. There was no other reason. It was just, this game looks big. This game looks like it's going to be long. And this time I judged the book by the cover, and this time it turned out to be right.
So was that your first Final Fantasy?
Yeah, it was. I mean, when I saw that it was 7, I wasn't sure if that was just, some kind of marketing ploy, or something like that. I had no idea. I genuinely had no idea that there'd been any more. I mean, the only inkling was that it was 7. It was 7, so I assumed that maybe there were 6 others, but I had no idea whatsoever. I didn't have a SNES. Otherwise, I probably would have ended up at some point becoming acquainted with Final Fantasy VI. But I went from the Atari 2600 to the NES to the Megadrive. I never had a Master System. I never had a SNES. A friend had a SNES and a Master System, but I never came across Final Fantasy at all.
Wow.
So back to the translation here. What are some of the more shocking things that you found were not correctly translated to English before?
It's a difficult question, because basically the entire game was backward. The entire game was wrong. But there are some examples of. I mean, obviously everybody knows the super obvious ones, Because You're a Puppet by Genova, which is spelled wrong. This guy is sick. It's become it's legendary. I've even had people begging me to keep that line in.
Really?
Yeah, it's just I'm doing a retranslation, but I think I'll make exception for that one. But yeah, there's a line. There's an example on the forum that I've put up. I've put a few examples up. For example, there's one with Yuffie, and it doesn't make any sense, because the person who has translated, localized it even, has not played the scene, and so they've assumed that she's talking about Cloud when in fact she's actually talking to Cloud. So it's a complete nonsense. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if you look at what it's meant to be compared to what it actually is, you won't actually believe when you do read it. I'm not sure if you've read it, but you should check the post. You will not believe that your brain didn't tell you how bad that sounded, because the human mind, I've realized this, it's capable somehow, I don't know how, but it's capable of bridging in some kind of gap. It can give you a load of waffle. You can look at a load of nonsense, and your brain will try to present it in a way that makes sense to you, and you will not realize just how bad it is until someone says, just check this out. Just look at this. And then you'll think, my God, how the hell did I miss how bad that actually was? And there's other examples. There's like, for example, not just clear translation errors like that are just absolutely abominable, but there are ones where the flavour has been lost. For example, the pagoda in Wutai.
Okay.
Each floor, well, first of all, the characters are named after literary characters, real life characters. Apart from one, Gordo comes from Waiting for Godot. Shake is from Shakespeare. Stanif is from Stanislaw. What's the other one? Well, they're all named after real people. Mm-hmm. But I think the writers have tried to be a bit clever there as well, because they've made Shake the little kid. So the one who has like the most elegant speech, Shakespeare, ends up being this little brat who's not got very good grammar. It's just basically what's the word, slang. But the higher up the pagoda you go, the more refined the speech pattern becomes, until the only way you can really approximate it is by using Old English, or at least modern English. Not so. Each character on the pagoda has a way of speaking in the Japanese game, from Shake being the slangy little kid, okay, to Stanif and the other one who speak. So we've localized that. The point I'm getting at is the original localization just treated each one of those characters as a generic speech pattern. There's no difference.
Instead
really
of it getting more and more formal as you went up, I assume?
Yeah, more refined and more. I mean, it misses completely the whole point of all the characters apart from Shake, which they kind of made into a little brat in the original as well. Right. The rest of them are just a generic speech, and that's such a shame, because it's something like that completely misses the nuance of the original scene.
I don't remember, anything like that. I just remember going up that thing and kicking everybody's ass. But
and there are other things that we've had to change as well. For example, there are times when the script itself has to be reprogrammed because the translation won't work without slight tweaks. Now, I've tried to minimize that as much as possible. It's only a few maps that I've had to tweak like that. But every so often, I mean, for example, one of the ones is the gym, the gym in Wall Market. There's a part in there where the original scene doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, you just will not get it. It's basically Cloud realizes that he's talking to a man dressed as a woman, which is the Big Bro character.
Really?
He realizes that it's he doesn't know that. Aerith knows that, but he doesn't. And so there's a part where he realizes that, and he says, are you a man? Basically, that's what he's gonna say. And Aerith jumps in and cuts him off and tries to make the best situation out of that to try and spur the embarrassment. That has been completely lost now to localize.
Yeah, because I have no idea what.
Yeah. So unfortunately, to localize that into English is pretty much impossible.
Okay.
Without cheating. So we've had to cheat to get that scene to
get
work.
The original meaning across.
Yeah, or at least to try and get something there that's going to work. Because the original, if you take the Japanese for that and you put it into English, it comes like it happens like this. Are you a magnificent bro? You see, doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. No, and so Yeah, and in fact, the original English kind of tries to do that. It misses the point, of course, and it does that. It ends up coming out with something like "big bro, everyone calls me." It doesn't work.
Right.
It's
so one of the things I've noticed about 7 is, I really have always enjoyed the game. It was my first Final Fantasy game as well. But whenever anyone would ask me a question like, well, why is Sephiroth here? Why is he in the, the Temple of the Ancients? When he was crystallized. And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like this. I have no fucking idea why he's here and he's not here.
Yeah.
And,
whereas the game,
And I think a lot of that has to do with the translation. And I mean, watching Advent Children, even though I have greatly mixed feelings on that, but it kind of explains it a little better because there are, other projects that they had done. There are other Sephiroth, so to speak, like the dudes in the black hood is the only thing I could possibly fathom, unless it was something in Cloud's psyche.
Obviously, Advent Children actually retcons a lot of the original game, including that, really. But at least there are parts of that do make sense. The idea basically is that it's actually Genova that is walking around the place. She's a shapeshifter, an extraterrestrial who crash landed on Earth. Sorry, not Earth, on the planet. Basically she can shapeshift, and Sephiroth, because he was injected with Genova cells. Anyone who is injected with Genova cells has a strong, it can be controlled by Genova, has a strong bond with Genova, who is an extraterrestrial, has a special ability based on the film The Thing, actually, largely in part. Same idea, landed in a... you've watched the film The Thing, I take it, the old version.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, the extraterrestrial who can shapeshift lands in a nice area and is dug up, like the ancients dug up Genova. And then she shapeshifted into various members of their family, infected them with a virus, and that's all she does, really. She just wants to dominate, to conquer. Now, the difference was when Sephiroth, as far as I'm aware anyway, I think I'm right here, when Sephiroth was... When he was given the Genova cells, his will was so strong that he was able to dominate Genova instead of the other way around. And so instead of Genova being able to boss him about, he ended up controlling Genova, and thus he could shapeshift her into his own image, walk around the place, making Genova basically do his bidding. And that is what happens. And that's why, if you look at the Shinra building, you see that Genova escapes, and you see the little blood trail, don't you?
Yes.
And then you get to the top and it disappears. Why did it disappear? Because she shapeshifted into Sephiroth, and Sephiroth then kills the president.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wow, yeah. I missed a lot of that.
I just thought he was having an insane out-of-body experience the entire time.
Yeah, so that, and there is a part on the cargo ship where Cloud kind of tries to explain it, and it probably was lost in the original. I can't remember what the original dialogue was, but it explains, in fact, I think there is a part of that missing, but it explains that they haven't, they think at the time that Sephiroth's been carrying around Genova. He says, it's the arm of Genova. He's been carrying around Genova. Not the case. You'll see the shape-shifting thing again is limited by the graphics. But if you remember when Urif dies, Sephiroth spins his little head. He goes flying into the sky, and he comes down. And then you're fighting Genova again. He's shape-shifted back into a monster.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the real Sephiroth is in the Great Crater. He's there with which is basically the Promised Land. He's surrounded by he's got a lot of spiritual energy. He's surrounded by Mako. He's able to exert his will over Genova, so he's allowed Mako do his bidding. And also, all the Black Cloak people are also injected. They're also former soldier members, all of them. That's why, including Cloud, they've all been given Genova cells and treated with the same kind. They're all basically part of the Sephiroth copy project. And they're all following, basically, they're all converging on the reunion because the will of Genova and Sephiroth are drawing them to that one place. And there's a part on the beach with Hojo. He's saying the same thing. He's saying, have you ever felt the need to absolutely be someplace? And Cloud responds and says, the only place I want to be at is where Sephiroth is. And Hojo says back, intriguing, my hypothesis may well be correct then, because he realizes that that's the whole purpose. The reunion is basically the it's basically Genova drawing people who've been injected with the cells, because she then has, or he has, because Sephiroth obviously superseding her, the power to draw these people. And also, it's all the different... I think I've just realised this now, actually. I'm not too sure, but I think I've just realised this now. Because they've got Genova cells, all parts of Genova, when she's dismembered, it doesn't matter if it's one cell like the Thing, for example, or 50,000 cells. They all want to get back to being one perfect body, which is what the reunion is. It's basically all parts of Genova becoming one again.
Okay.
Yeah, you get it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
I always felt like the game was kind of shrouded in some deep, mysterious sort of storytelling way, and I just kind of went along with it.
Well, to be fair, a lot of that you don't even get from the proper translation, I'm afraid to say. A lot of that you do have to like think about, but at least you've got a chance of figuring it out. You haven't got a prayer of finding out all that from the original translation. You might as well just write down a lot of random words on a page. You've got no hope.
Yeah. So there was a few other things that I noticed were completely lost. There was that scene with I think it's Scarlet, and she talks to Reeve, and he says something. Yeah. I don't even remember what the hell he says.
He says, "You talk funny, Reeve."
Yeah, and it's supposed to be because Kate Sith, the entire time is supposed to have a Scottish accent, which we would never know.
Yeah, years. Obviously in Japan, they don't have Scottish accent. They use a Kanzi accent, which is a very distinct accent over there, as far as a dialect. Even as far as I'm aware, anyway. It stands out a mile to a Japanese person that it's a different district. So obviously when they get to that point in the game and Reeve makes a mess up because he's talking to Scarlet and Heidegger at the same time as he's talking to Cloud and the gang, he mixes up his accent, and Scarlet realises that he's speaking very strangely. His accent's strange. His dialect has gone all strange. And that's completely, again, like you say, it's lost on the audience because the localizer didn't localise the Kanzi accent.
Yeah, and I mean, I noticed that when I first played, what was it, Dirge of Cerberus? I was like, why does he have a Scottish accent? What is this?
Yeah, it's funny that's one of the things that they actually decided to put back in. As far as I'm aware, they only ever did two things that were faithful to the original that they had to change. Or they didn't have to change, but they did. One was obviously changing Ares to Aerith. Obviously, that caused a lot of controversy, but that's one of the things they changed. And the other one was they gave Kate his accent back. And they didn't have to do that either, really, but they did.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, though, when you look at the lore of Kate Sith. I mean, it's a Scottish legend.
Exactly.
Thing.
It's the... there's a way... It isn't actually pronounced Sith. I forget how it's pronounced. It's a silly thing. It's like she or something like that. And it's based on a Highland cat who haunted the Highlands, and... Yeah, that's where it comes from. I think Kate is Old Gaelic for cat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see.
So we do have a couple questions from the forums, and we asked a little bit about that on our forums here.
Fire away.
One of the interesting questions here: have you ever thought to translate another Final Fantasy like FF8?
I've been asked this. I was asked this by Eurogamer as well. Two things for that. First of all, obviously, I'm at the mercy of a Japanese speaker. And most people who are Japanese who are localizing want to do the entire project themselves and probably can do a very competent job themselves, so they wouldn't need me. The other thing is, I mean, I'd need somebody who was as devoted as me and who was willing to work with me on another game. Second reason why I wouldn't do it is because I'm not passionate about other games to put in that amount of time, because it is an enormous amount of time. I haven't got the passion for that for another game.
Okay.
And the other reason would be that most of the games, including Final Fantasy VIII, are pretty well localized. From what I can gather, FF8 did have its moments, did have its flaws, but was generally pretty well localized. Final Fantasy IX was very well localized. Final Fantasy X was excellently localized. So, I mean, where do you go from there, really? And a lot of these other games, the other Final Fantasies, are being remade and relocalized, like FF3, FF4 for the DS. I think they got a relocalization as well. So it's pretty redundant, really.
So speaking of remakes and whatnot. How do you feel about the announcement for the Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Yeah, hopefully I'm not going to be shot down now. But I absolutely hate it. I've got absolutely no enthusiasm for it. I haven't had any enthusiasm for Square as a company for a long, long time. I didn't like Dirge. I didn't like the prequel sequel material. I hated Advent Children. I absolutely loathe it. I think lazy storytelling. The battle. I mean, the whole thing. I've got no. And then FF, I bought a PS3 for Metal Gear Solid 4 and for Final Fantasy 13. Hated them both. Sold the PS3. So I've got absolutely no enthusiasm for it. And from what I'm reading of the interviews that are coming out and what I've seen so far of Final Fantasy 15 as well, which is likely using the same engine, doesn't instill me with a lot of confidence. They're already talking about the things that I expected. See, if this had been remade for the PS2, for example, I would have been really fired up because back then there seemed to me to be much more control over how to keep the essence of the games the same, and they didn't have all this power with the computer consoles. They weren't trying to bloat it up with graphics. But already the ATB system is probably history. They're going to bring in a live version of a live battle system, which I detest. That's me personally. I detest that kind of thing. I like a turn-based thing. And not to say that didn't need updating. I mean, the fact is that Final Fantasy VII got the systems pretty well. It's just it implemented them very poorly. The overall difficulty of Final Fantasy VII is piss easy. It's too easy. It needs to.
I thought it was well balanced, personally.
The final boss should be a pain in the ass, I think, and he wasn't.
Well, I mean, the whole thing, you're not using your brain with Final Fantasy VII right from the off. I mean, in terms of in gameplay, because you see, you end up doing what a lot of turn-based games fall into, and even real-time ones, is that you just hack and slash. You can just keep pressing attack.
Keep pressing attack.
In fact, there's a part, the Midgard Soma, where you can just basically leave your console on all night with the circle button pressed down. I mean, you should never be able to get away with doing something like that. It should be the case that you've certain, say, weapons are weak against mechanical enemies, which I'm trying to actually do with a separate mod to update the difficulty. That you've got to really think about what to buy at shops instead of just being bundled with millions of gil to just do as you please. You see, the actual system in place is really well made. The Materia system is inspired. It's lovely. It's just that it's just not been tweaked. It's not been tested enough to really make you use the best of the tools that they had there at the disposal.
Right.
That's where it fell down.
The only way I disagree with that is if you're trying to go through the game very quickly. That's when you really got to be like, okay, I need to get enemy skills. I need to have trying to tear this guy apart. But I mean, if you're playing it at a standard pace where you're just figuring stuff out, figuring out where to go, it's a cakewalk. I mean, I rocked most of it when I was young.
See, that's what people have had to resort to doing though. Like they do in every game, they've got to set themselves new tasks because the game was easy. If the game was harder, then, well, they'd still do it because people like doing that, and they do that in every single game. They make little challenges for themselves. Final Fantasy IX came with its own little challenge, didn't it, of having to get the Excalibur 2 sword. So yeah, I mean, I understand that, but as out of the box goes, it's pretty easy. I mean, for a start off, I mean, the very first thing that happens in Final Fantasy VII is, one of the first things is you have the timer to get out of the reactor. I don't know anyone who's died doing that. I've changed the timer in a separate mod to 5 minutes, and that makes it a bit more challenging. 10 minutes is just a cakewalk. It was designed that way. I understand it from a financial point of view. If you make a game too hard, like for example Bayou fucking Billy for the NES.
I've heard things.
Yeah, it can. I had that game for the NES, and let me tell you, it's so awful. I mean, you end up just packing it away. So you can go too far. If you go too far and you get the balance completely wrong and you make the game too hard, that's going back to the shop. That's going to hurt sales. So I understand them erring on the side of being too easy. Apart from the weapons, I like those. They were good.
So what do you think is the caused the downfall of Square Enix? Do you think it was technology? I mean, we tend to think that The popularity of Square Enix probably slipped with Hironobu Sakaguchi leaving.
Yeah, that seems to obviously be a big thing. But then I get told by people that his control over certain projects wasn't as great as what you'd expect. But I have to say, he must have been doing something. I mean, he must have been, because I mean, I don't blame it all on that. I think that I think it's a whole contribution of things. If I remember rightly, Sakaguchi was basically forced out because of the disastrous spirits within, which is. I believe it's...
he was exiled to Hawaii for a couple of years and then he eventually quit.
I mean, I believe that's the number 2 box office bomb when adjusted for inflation. So, I mean, that's an awful, awful thing to have on your resume. I mean, obviously, he's not a filmmaker. So that went wrong, and they ended up being forced out. The Square lost a lot of money, and then they were bought out. It wasn't really a merger. They were bought out by Enix.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a merger, but it was such a flop for that movie that they didn't have the money. They were going to initially buy Enix, but then they didn't have any money anymore.
So we could basically say that Sakaguchi created Final Fantasy and destroyed it.
Yeah, that's the sad part.
Yeah, well, it was just to destroy.
I personally have hope for 15. I played the demo and I really enjoyed it. With all that being said, will you actually try the FF7 remake when it comes out?
Well, I won't have a PS4 because I've got no intention of buying one.
Okay.
But I definitely will not just shrug it off and ignorantly say, well, I've got my opinion on that, and I'm definitely not going to look into it. I mean, I have looked into the prequel, sequel material.
Okay.
I look into everything like that. I look at YouTube videos primarily. Look at, like I said, the first 2 hours of gameplay, see whether or not I'm happy with that, which I wasn't with Final Fantasy 13, which is why I didn't buy it. I saw straight away that it was a literal gauntlet, which I didn't like. But yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll read the reviews. I'll be keeping up to date with all the information. I'm really interested in how it's going to come out, because what I think is going to happen is a lot of the core systems and everything are going to be rearranged and changed. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed from the fan side. I really do. I think it's going to sell really, really well. It's going to appeal to a lot more people because it's going to be more men. It's going to be like that. They're going to change it so that it has a larger audience. But I think the soul of the game is going to suffer as a result. Now, could be wrong. Could be wrong, but I really don't expect to be. So we could have this conversation again in another 2-3 years and see whether or not I was right. But I really get this feeling that, I mean, I don't like being doommonger. I get accused of being too negative, and maybe I am.
We got so much shit on our Final Fantasy VII Remake episode like 2 weeks ago that we were like, I'm not sure about it, whatever, and everybody else was super optimistic about it, and we've just gotten so, not so much hate for it, but a lot of I'm disappointed in you guys, kind of a thing. And I'm like, it's gonna change a lot, and maybe you don't want it to change so much.
Yeah. No, well, the thing is, I mean, a lot of people, which I disagree with. This is the type of people I do disagree with. Is the people who wanted the game to be a 1-to-1 copy. Now, what I wanted it to be was roughly a 1-to-1, but changed in all the areas that needed, in my opinion, changing. For example, the gameplay balance we've already discussed. That needed changing. I wanted obviously, I didn't want it to be a full 3D game. I wanted it to be a pre-rendered thing, which a lot of people disagree with. Obviously, 720p graphics or something like that. I wanted it to be updated graphics. Everybody wants that. I wanted the music to come with an option of orchestral pieces, but keep the original as well. I wanted an option to disable voice acting. I don't even think that needs to be even done. Right. I wanted the original translation to be intact. And I wanted a lot more mini games at the Gold Saucer. I wanted all those redoing, and I wanted them to that should have been the focal point of making the game even better. You could add far more stuff to the Gold Saucer. Really spend some time there. So I mean the systems, I wanted that to be in place, but I wanted it to be tweaked and updated so that not just I mean materia placement as well. I wanted all that to be re-looked at and changed, made so that the system was being utilized better. But so I did not take this. I mean, I did not want it to be the same old copy with all the same flaws, just with better graphics. I wanted better graphics, but tweaked so that all these little niggles and problems were ironed out. Instead, disappointment on my side, what I can already tell is going on is that it is going to be a completely different game.
Yeah, they're going to revamp it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people on the forums that have mentioned that they would love it if they kept the old ATB system, and I'm like, I can't even fathom that in a modern game. I mean, I love it personally. I think it's fantastic.
No, they'll never do it.
Yeah, if anything, it's going to be, my fear is that it's going to be 15.
Yeah, it is. They use
12 or
the
13.
same engine, I believe, as well. Makes sense, I suppose. So that's good. If the thing is, and this has been mentioned a few times as well, when this remake, all this talk of remake for the last God knows how many years has gone on, it's all been from the fan perspective, which is the people who originally got the game where it got. It became a big fan thing. And the idea was that they were going to do this remake and it was going to be for the fans. And I never subscribed to that in the last 5-10 years, because I knew that I thought if a remake was being made, that it wasn't going to do that, that it was going to look at it from a realistic point of view, and finance would be the overriding factor. And of course, that's exactly what's happening. It is being remade, not for the fans. I think that's what people really need to get out of their heads. This is not being done for the fans. This is being done for purely or mostly a financial venture, which, because it's a company like that. And the original game did have a lot of, obviously money was involved in it mostly, but it got a balance between art and money. And this, I don't think this is like, I think this is shifted clearly onto the we're making this because we want to make some profit.
Okay. So just to be clear, how do people get a hold of your mod for FF7, or how do they utilize that? Can they use the Steam version of 7?
Yeah, and I'm redoing the menu. I've cancelled I had another project where I redid the font, redid everything. The whole menu was completely redone, and then realised at the end of all that nonsense that it didn't fit with the style of the game. That seems to be a lot of the problems with the mods that are made. They make a mistake of doing that, and I made that mistake as well. That you can redo, you can change that engine as much as you want, but at the end of the day, unless you're redoing all of the backgrounds, redoing the entire lot, I mean from scratch, and even the engine would probably need redoing, you're still at the mercy of different parts. You can't just plonk a good-looking menu in the middle of that.
In the middle of that game, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't do that. I tried and I failed. It looks really nice, but the minute you click X or cancel, you're back to 320 by 224 backgrounds. So where do you go from there? So I've gone back to I've got rid of that. I've kicked that out of the installer as of the latest installer. When it comes out, that's going to be basically discontinued, and I've gone back to rearranging the original menu, which sucks to be honest, but I'm making it look nice. It's still classic. That's what I like about it. It's a classic look, and it does work. It works perfectly. It's with Steam, and the translation works perfectly with Steam, and it's just an installer basically. It detects whether you've got Steam installed, and then it'll change the box. But you can select it manually if you want, and then you just click the options you want, whether to keep the original canon names, whether to keep the some of the changes I've give options with, whether you have American English or British English, which is changed in real time by a program that I made. And then you just click install, and there you are.
Okay, and this is on quim.com?
Yeah, it's on the main post.
Wait.
It's like QHIMM or something like that.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
IMM, yeah. I forget why the dude who made the forum, and we hardly see him actually. He's a bit reclusive. Why he chose that name? I don't think that's actually his name.
You're not sure what it's for? I was going to ask you what it was.
I'm just there.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
So have you? I know we did some research on a piece where there was a team that retranslated and localized Final Fantasy Type 0 for PSP, and they essentially just got shut down by Square. Have you ever received any sort of kickback or any notice from the company at all? Because they seem to be very protective of their
has Quim.com received anything like that you're aware of?
No, definitely not. And I think there might be a reason for that. First of all, that Zero game is obviously it's a more modern game. Right with that, aren't I? I'm out of the loop with I haven't got into that. I haven't even seen that game, to be honest with you, which is a bit odd.
We had to get it for the FF15 demo.
Yeah, I haven't even played it, and I spent like $100 on it. So.
Oh well, you see that's it. People, it's a newer game, so they're more protective over that. And I'm guessing that if someone did do a mod with that game, like they did with Chrono Trigger, they're probably distributing entire files so that you don't need to even have the original game. Which
I believe what they had to do, they had to like use a modded PSP or something, and then get the Japanese version of the game over here.
Yeah.
Of course, this. Yeah. I believe Square Enix was pro this project that we're talking about before they decided to localize it, and then when they decided to localize it, then they started shutting that down.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, because then it could affect the sales when the game, if the game gets localized.
The important thing is that they don't install FF7 through Quim. They have to go get the game first and then get the mods on top of that.
You see, the whole change has been made by programs that I've coded myself that edit the files that exist. If you haven't got the files to begin with, then it isn't a copy paste situation. There's nothing being copy pasted. Also, the Japanese person that I work with also created a program to edit all the text in the game, and I work with him on that. So nothing is being distributed. There are no files being distributed. It's all hex editing and text changing with files that we distribute, our own programs. I mean, that we distribute. So there's nothing. There are no files from the game in the installer, which makes it much more legally palatable.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, Daniel, for sitting down with us.
Yeah.
Over Skype. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about your project. It's the Beacause Project.
Is that it? Can we not carry on?
I think we have to wrap it up here. It's the Beacause Project. You can go to quim.com, and I can't remember how to spell it. What was it again?
QHIMM.com.
Okay. Quim.com. Join the forums there, and you can learn more about the Beacause Project and mod your own Steam version or PC version of FF7. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I thought that went pretty well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a lot of fun. Now, there were a few things that we didn't record that we had asked him.
Yeah, we talked for like 3 or 4 minutes after we were done.
Right. We asked him about, what was it? Was it kickback?
He thought it was odd that we didn't ask him about the negative feedback. It's
from the community.
I didn't even think to ask him because I had none.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people... You know,
in the deep web,
I guess there's a lot of people that have the mentality that, you know, this is something sacred, that it shouldn't be messed with, so to speak. It shouldn't be fixed. They think it's fine with its errors, which I think is a retarded mentality to have, but whatever. You can think what you want.
Fine with its errors, but I think it's really cool to see what the closer meaning is.
Yeah, I think it's retarded to just turn a blind eye to the truth is what bugs me. But, you know, whatever. That's a different mentality. But we forgot to ask him about that, and you know, he said that he's had a fair amount of negative feedback. Not like a great amount. It's mostly, I think he said
it was mostly
70-30 positive. Yeah. If not higher.
And he found it odd that the people who had problems with him changing stuff were also the people that seemed to be really gung-ho for the remake.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense at all.
not with the changes that have been forewarned.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird
in the remake.
Hate love hate BS relationship with the game itself if they're willing to go for a remake but not a retranslation.
I think it's extremely cool what he's doing. And by the way, there were a whole bunch of questions that the forum members asked, and he made an account and answered those things when we were done recording.
Yeah, in a gigantic post.
And we're going to copy and paste it in the episode description.
Okay.
So the interview goes on in the episode description. So
right.
Look there, and there'll be more stuff for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's cool when people do stuff like this, especially when it's a game that's plagued with so many translation issues like Final Fantasy VII is. I don't see why you would be negative towards it. You don't have to. You don't have to really accept it, but to like actually be like, no, I hate you for this.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah. If I ever buy the game on Steam,
and so please check that out at kim.com.
Yeah,
QHIMM. Is that it? QHIMM.
Yeah,
I don't know. I said it like a few minutes ago.
Yeah, we just barely said it.
Check it out. There's actually a whole bunch of other mods there. There's mods for like Final Fantasy VIII and stuff on that side.
Yeah,
so
and it's a good community. There's a lot of members.
Yeah.
They just talk about Final Fantasy all the time, and
Yeah, but also join our forums. I mean,
yeah. Well, we talk about Final Fantasy all the time, so
Well, and sometimes weight loss, but
for like 10 seconds.
You can check out our other shows, Getting Fat with Caleb and Joe.
It's also PHAT, so that's why no one finds it. But
so last week's question from us to you, I was wondering what people in our small little community here. I was wondering what if any of them were thinking about starting a podcast, and if they had any questions about it. Just because this is a podcast, we run 3 podcasts, we've done 4 podcasts.
Yeah, momentarily.
And so through this year or so of doing podcasts, we've learned quite a bit of stuff. So if there's anything you guys need to know about podcasting, just send us a message. I know there's a post on Facebook I need to respond to later.
Yeah, I reminded you of that one.
In fact, if you could pull that up, I'll just answer it on the show here. But I got to tell you, podcasting is an interesting, not sure if to call it an art form or not. I think it is kind of an art form, scheduling a show and going through the arc of a show and figuring out everything and keeping it interesting. But it is really satisfying to mostly to get feedback from you guys. It's a really satisfying thing to run a podcast. So I highly recommend it to anyone who is willing to give their time to it. Caleb, can you find that thing?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. The fuck is up with the Facebook thing? Like,
I don't know.
Message is like the worst thing ever in the fucking page format.
I don't know.
Oh, it's probably off the side here. All right, fuck it. We'll do the other ones first.
Okay.
All right, so
was he asking about like equipment?
Yeah, he was asking about what we started up with. That's probably going to be asked anyway.
Okay.
All right, so within this thread, is anyone here interested in starting their own show on podcasting?
Blah, 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 blah. It's all the same thing.
Oxbellow says, are you planning on creating a podcast empire? I've thought about it before, but everything that I would want to do has already been done 100 times before.
As far as doing a podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we planning on creating a podcast empire? We kind of have one. It's very small.
Yeah, it's like a tiny little empire.
It's like Cyprus or something. Is that a country?
I don't know.
I know it's an island. I thought they were their own country, but maybe not. So maybe that was a bad example. But we do run multiple shows, and I guess that is a podcast empire. However, only one of them is really successful.
Yeah, and the reason behind that is because of how much effort we've put into this one versus the other one. So that's the problem with it, is you have to be really passionate about whatever you're going to build the empire on. If it's going to be different shows, you have to go gung-ho, freaking balls deep with getting fat if we were to make it like this, which we haven't done.
And we have talked about the future of getting fat, and there is a great future, but it's going to take a little while for getting fat.
Yeah, and this took a little while too, but probably not as long as getting fat will. So
No, there was definitely more of a plan with this podcast.
yeah, and I think that's why it's successful.
Yeah, it's successful and solid, and it's a popular subject.
It is, and I think we do a decent job talking about it. So
Yeah.
you know.
And as far as you're talking about how everything's been done before, there's a reason why we have a certain format for this show. It's because we looked at what other people did and we brought it together and then we added ourselves to it.
Yeah,
and so it made it unique, despite the fact that there are maybe a dozen Final Fantasy shows.
Active and
most
inactive.
of them are dead. And out of those that aren't dead, they're mostly FF14 or FF11 based. And so really there's only 3 living Final Fantasy shows, and we're one of them. And so
you have to look at it that way. I mean,
you got to look at your niche. I mean, podcasting is definitely a niche thing.
Yeah, you can't do a really general podcast, at least not when you're amateur. It's you don't know. People don't know you. I mean, if we were celebrities,
if
we
were
could come out with anything
yeah.
we wanted and it would be massive.
Right.
But we're not.
And you could just talk about whatever you want, like Hank Green and John Green, the author and his brother that also run a YouTube thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just started a podcast and went all the way to the top. I listened to it and they're like, they just go everywhere.
Yeah, like
I was like, oh, that's cool. And it's
works.
like Adam Carolla has his own show and it's just him. Well, it's not just him, but it's like it's around him.
Yeah.
It's about whatever he wants to talk about.
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing is you just got to stick with it. You need to find something that you're really
assuming you're not
passionate
a celebrity. Yeah, exactly. Stick with it.
Yeah, that's really the biggest thing is just keep going.
Find a niche and figure out how to make your show better than the others in your niche if you chose a popular subject.
Yes, that's the important part. You have to be above and beyond.
Yeah, or at least as good.
At least to some people. Yeah.
All right, we got another one from Kafka Plaza here. I was actually debating such a thing for a while, but may just be the musings of a madman. I don't think I have the charisma nor the patience and the time for something like a podcast, let alone the time to do all the editing, which takes him forever. Hell, I was for a while trying to do YouTube videos, but even that I put to the wayside due to lack of time. He had an idea for a movie pod. Now, editing a podcast, Caleb, a lot of podcasts are edited, and I'd say the best one as far as like podcast editing is concerned, besides maybe like Serial or something like that, I think Freakonomics Radio, they really edit their episodes down to like the bare minimum, good quality content. We are, however, a looser show, and I used to get bugged by that early on, but now I kind of like it.
Well, we're a lot better than we were early on too.
Yeah,
we're better at speaking. There's less.
I think so.
Nothing going on.
I think so. Yeah, a lot less air.
Yeah, radio air. So I mean, with the editing, honestly, how long does it take you to edit everything, Joe?
It's not so much the editing. I mostly mix, but I do a little bit of editing for this show because I have to put that clip of music in, which for this episode will be probably 2 clips of music.
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe 20 to 30 minutes for all 3 shows.
For all 3 shows, yeah. That's not bad. And then it takes about...
No, but I do have a whole bunch of presets.
Yeah, you got to find a good...
ready to go.
You can go online and Google.
If you guys do a podcast... I'll give you my presets. Like, I'll tell you what your settings can be down to get to this sound. I mean, sometimes we have episodes that don't sound as good because we, screwed up with the mixer or something like that.
Yeah, some piece of equipment is trashes on us.
Yeah, and that's you can avoid that by having better equipment
or having a shitload of extra pieces if you want to spend a ton of money on it. But,
just having Adobe Audition and then your good presets, you're good.
Or even what's the other one we use? Audacity. It sounds pretty good with Audacity. When we went back to Audacity for a couple episodes, I was like, man, that sounds amazing. It's just the different sound. They have their strengths and weaknesses, but I would say Audition's better.
Audition
overall.
has most of the strengths,
and it's got a lot more customization when it comes to the editing the mids, the highs.
The thing is, Audacity is less user friendly, and so I couldn't figure out how to work the compression on. Audition is less user friendly. It's like it's a lot closer to Pro Tools, which is kind of what everything is a knockoff of.
Right.
And so it is less user friendly. You have to know more about it. So I just had to learn more.
Yeah, but you can do so much more with it. I mean, it sounds way better, I think.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of it's there's that, and then it takes like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes to upload everything.
So Kefka Palazzo was talking about a movie podcast where you do a short history of the movie, synopsis of the film, discussion on the movie, interesting facts about the movie, listener reviews, and final thoughts. So it'd basically be a movie review show. Now, we have talked about doing a movie review show here, but there is a curse placed upon those who do movie review shows and do any sort of critiquing, in that they will never, ever make a movie.
Yeah. Well, Joe is superstitious, so I would be willing to do that, though. I think that would be great, especially for...
I would not be happy.
Yeah, if I did it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's just not fair.
Because you wouldn't be part of it, even though you love movies.
If you want to hear our movie podcast, it's Getting Fat with Caleb and Joe. We talk about losing weight, and then we talk about movies for 20 minutes. So
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to talk about it, if you want our movie podcast, you can do that. Also, with movie podcasts, there is a lot of competition because
it's hard to.
Everybody wants to be a movie critic.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. Everybody wants to be a game critic too. I mean, we found our niche, but it's rough.
Yeah, well, and even if you are,
but if you are really good, I mean, you'll be up there.
What I would say is, even if you're planning on doing what we will most likely end up doing near the end, where we, what I'm hoping we do anyway, is where we just turn into RPGs. You have to start.
We just turn into them?
Yeah, we just form into like 8-bit battles, and yeah, we go to work and like 8 hours of just grind. But no, if you do that, start out with a series. Start out somewhere, so that by the time you go really broad to just pure RPGs, you have a good base. And that way you're not just going to get destroyed by every other RPG
Maybe.
podcast.
I actually had this conversation with Caleb Craig, who really, I mean, there's a mini-sode out there with the whole episode that we did, the whole pilot we did for our game show.
Yeah, the Nude Clan Gaming.
Nude Clan, yeah, whatever it was. Talked about, he's like, I want to launch it now. And I'm like, no, wait a few years. Wait for UFF to reach the peak so that we have a good debut.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Don't go too broad until you've got
until you've got a following. Because Rooster Teeth can end, and then the people from it can go make another podcast, and it'd be a big thing because they're following those people talking about games.
Right.
You know, we're still a small we're like a medium-sized podcast now, I'd say. We're not Limit Break Radio, and we're not Damn Chocobo. I mean, we're not a retro RPG show, which I saw their numbers and I was like, oh, we're actually doing way better than they are.
Well,
as far as downloads are, but so I'd say we're a middle ground podcast, as far as our download rates are concerned. I mean, the day that we become like the size of Limit Break Radio, which will probably take just as long as Limit Break Radio has been out, which is like 6 years.
Yeah.
and this show will probably go for about 3 more years. At that point, you could probably start a new show and and keep most of you guys would hopefully go with us if we're talking about games.
Or I mean, we wouldn't even. Oh, the game one. Yeah. I thought you were still talking going RPG. I was going to say,
then going RPG, and it's a more broad show, but then you'd have that audience from the
and UFF. Most of the people that are in communication with us play a shitload of RPGs, so I feel like they'd be okay with it because they're like, oh, this game came out, and this game, and this game, this series that none of us have played, and crazy shit. So
go ahead and read Krinital's response.
All right, this is Krinital's. Kefka, you took the words right out of my mouth on the views of different podcasts. The UFF podcast line is so far the best podcast I can listen to. Well, thank you. So much so I can go back and listen to old shows and still find enjoyment.
I can't.
Where others talk only about current events in a game or just their point of view on it at the time, and that is limited as a limited time podcast. You listen to it as it's coming out, and once it's over, you never listen to it again. Your podcast line, on the other hand, will be entertaining for many months and beyond, depending on how long the nostalgia lasts for, or whenever Square fucks up, is probably what it should have been, and goes bankrupt.
Ducks up,
but you can swear
with a phone.
You can swear on the forum.
You just can't swear on an Android.
Oh, really? Oh, you can. You
Oh,
can
have you
type
tried
it
to
in.
put? Have you tried to put fucks?
Yeah, it just tries to do ducks.
says ducks?
It doesn't auto do it,
That's
though.
totally what he did. It does.
Damn it, Crinitol. No, I can control
Yeah,
mine.
ducking is fucking.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Crinitol.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Certainly, any sort of review show that'd be the case for. You could go back and listen to whatever.
Oh, yeah.
At least the reviews.
And apparently not everyone does because they're like, oh, you're going to do this? You're like, yes, we're going to do this. We said it so many times.
Okay, if one more person asks me to do Chrono Trigger, my head's just gonna.
Yeah, if you ask
I'm
again,
just gonna commit suicide.
we're not going to fucking play it. No, I'm kidding. We'll play it. But
yes, Chrono Trigger will be played.
and so will Chrono Cross
Yes.
right after.
The list is on the forum. Join the forum.
Damn you.
Please, yes, we will play Chrono Trigger.
There's no way we would
and
miss
we
that.
will play Kingdom Hearts. And we will play the Mana games. And we will play Crystal Chronicles. And we will play all the freaking tactic games. And even Vagrant Story, okay? We're gonna play them.
It's true. And we'll probably play the... what's the Transformers one that I always bash on because it looks ridiculous, but it's supposed to be amazing.
I have no idea.
The one you bought from Mario's recently. The Xenogears.
Xenogears.
Yeah, Xenogears. We'll play that.
The
We'll
reason
totally
we're
play it.
playing Chrono Trigger and Xenogears is because they were pitched as Final Fantasy games and they changed into something else.
So it's not
Same
even-
with Bravely Default. So, yeah.
We got a lot of games.
Yeah, we got a lot of games to go through. And those are like near the end. So if you want us to do Chrono Trigger, keep listening.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's just going to take a while.
Who's this from?
Bandrum.
No, up above that. Was that Paintrum?
Yeah, he changed his picture.
Oh, it changed his logo. Jeez, you're confusing me. I listen to over 12 podcasts a week about everything from 80s movies to horror films, Final Fantasy and video games in general, to educational philosophy and anthropology. Well, I've been sharing the UFF podcast review recordings to the hosts and trying to give some feedback. We just barely got those. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My main question is, in your opinion, how much of the podcast's lasting power comes from the topic and how much comes from the likability and quality banter of the hosts?
Well, that's not a question for us.
It's not.
But get on the forums and answer that, I guess.
I listen to other podcasts, though.
Yeah.
I'll say I'll listen to something like Retro RPG Show because I want to hear about the game. But the guys in it make it enjoyable, even if they're not talking about the show. So it's kind of both.
Yeah, they're okay.
They're both
I like
important aspects of running a podcast.
It's true. I mean, you can't just have a really interesting subject and two really shitty talkers.
And apparently Shinru had a podcast that ran for like 20 episodes and they stopped. And I would like to hear what the podcast was, Shinru.
Yeah.
So please send me a link. Gammon Stark.
His is yes, but I think the show would end up being for me rather than being for others. Is that how you guys got started? It is. We started because we both really liked Final Fantasy. We talked about it a lot. We actually beat the games, unlike our mutual friend who played them for like 20 hours, did hardly anything, and then just quit. And we were like, we should play through the Final Fantasies. And then Joe was like, hey, we should do a podcast. And then
because I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time and still do, by the way.
And then I don't know how we came up with the name. I think it was a joining of the both of us. And a bunch of the names we thought of were taken, including Limit Break. That was one of the ones I thought of. I was like, that's a great name. And you're like, oh, it's already a podcast. I'm like, shit. But we came up with it and we started.
The other name I was thinking of, we just couldn't get the website for it, was Final Fantasy Fanatics.
Yeah.
Which I used to run. There was a small website called FinalFantasyFanatics.com that basically had all the same stuff we have on our site, except a little bit more expanded.
Yeah, we're lazy on the site.
Well,
Damn that thing.
For 300. Anyway.
Yeah.
It was called FinalFantasyFanatics.com, and I kind of wanted that to be the podcast title, but after I didn't renew the website,
Someone else picked it up.
And was willing to sell it back for a few $100. And I was like, no.
I like Ultima Final Fantasy more anyway.
Ultimate Final Fantasy is fine. The only problem I have with Ultimate Final Fantasy being the title is that a lot of people call us Ultimate Final Fantasy, and because I've heard that a couple times.
Yeah?
Including on that one dude's show, the Social Link podcast or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
They talked about us.
Yeah,
They talked and Retro RPG Show. They both called us Ultimate Final Fantasy, and I'm like,
well, we are.
I mean, you'll be able to search us, but
Yeah, it's Ultima.
It's Ultima.
The
Final
spell / old school RPG series.
So if there is some mix up there. Final Fantasy fanatics would not be that way. And I don't know. Kind of missed that name.
Yeah. So someone's here apparently, but you made a show that you would want to listen to, but also because it gave you an outlet for creative energy and exploration.
Yes.
That is why we did it.
Yeah. Started for selfish reasons.
It's true. This one's all you.
I'd probably listen to the host talk about the size of their crap that day, to be honest. A lot more fun than rambling on a lot of other podcasts. They could start a podcast about probably anything except politics, and I would listen. And I'm wondering why they wouldn't you wouldn't be cool with us talking about politics, actually. That's interesting. I don't know. Do you think do we talk about politics very much on the show?
No, we don't. It's because you'd be wrong all the time and they'd just start hating you. I'm just kidding. You and your blank and blank. Damn you. But yeah, no.
We're not supposed to bring up politics on the show.
Yeah, it's probably because no one wants to hear about that shit. It's Final Fantasy.
And we choose to have that rule. It's not solid, but
no, it's pretty liberal.
I don't want to alienate people. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't matter. We're playing video games.
Exactly.
We're not running
we can
for
all
office.
come together with our controllers. We can all touch each other's joysticks and be
It's
just
true,
fine.
yeah.
All right, so what's this week's question? Oh, hold on a second. Oh, as far as equipment is concerned, we got a Behringer mixer, and we got the SM58 microphones here, and then just basically microphone stands, pop filters, and we have it all going into a recorder called the Zoom H1, although the H4n is probably a better option.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, though. It's got a little SD card. You pull it out. You don't even have to have the computer on unless you have questions and other shit that you have to read.
Now, we started with karaoke mics that we bought at Best Buy.
Yes.
For like $20. and then a thing called the Roland TriCapture. However, the Roland TriCapture is just as expensive as the analog mixer. So you might as well just get the analog mixer.
Yeah, it's got way more spots and the options are amazing. Yeah.
And someday I will do a series called Podcasting on the Cheap. So
yeah, that'll be awesome.
So I'll let you guys know about that when that happens sometime in the future. No timetable on it right now. So just as a reminder, go to youtube.com/Ultima Final Fantasy and subscribe to us there. At UFF Podcast on Twitter, Facebook.com/Ultima Final Fantasy, Patreon. Please support us on Patreon. Just $1 a month. We'll get you the episodes as soon as we're finished with them. You'll get them. They can go to twitch.tv/Ultima Final Fantasy and watch Caleb do his thing, and then ultimafinalfantasy.com is where you'll find all this information, and also join our forums on ultimafinalfantasy.com or ultimafinalfantasy.boards.net if you want to go straight there. Caleb, what's our question from us to you?
All right, so speaking of Twitch, I have recently realized that I have a shitload of games to play. So my question this week is, what game outside of Final Fantasy do you guys want me to be streaming?
You got some choices for them?
I do.
So
it's
that they're not just like, Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, I'm not playing... Okay, it's never going to be an RPG because we have way too many RPGs. And, okay, so here's the options. The first one, the Oddworld remake on PS4 that I got for free. I will stream that. Second option, let's go Darksiders 1. I never did finish that game.
Okay.
Third option... let's say Call of Duty Black Ops 2. That one's probably not going to be as appreciated, but I haven't beaten that one yet, and I'm not going to play Advanced Warfare until I beat that. I want to beat them in succession, except for Call of Duty 4, which I never played.
Nice.
And let's see, one more. Ah, jeez.
Well, Caleb, what do you want to play? What do you got that you haven't played all the way through yet? Anything on PS4? I have Destiny if you want to use it. No?
Nah.
You don't want to be one of the million people streaming Destiny?
No. Let's go Grand Theft Auto 1.
Oh, what?
Yes, I have it on Steam.
Wow.
It was like 70 cents. Yeah, we'll go old school.
Okay, Grand
GTA
Theft Auto
1. Yeah.
Okay, can you repeat what they are again?
Yeah, so Grand Theft Auto 1, Darksiders, the I can't remember. It's like Abe's Odyssey, Abe's Exodus, the first Oddworld game remastered, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Okay.
Which of those 4?
And we'll have a poll on the forum.
It's true.
Yep. So I think that's going to end it for this week. And make sure you follow us at all the right dealio places. We're going to play some more FF12 here soon, aren't we?
Play? Is that what you're going to call it? Well,
auto level.
Yeah, enjoy the grind, you guys.
This has been another production of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. The show was produced by Joseph DeGollier and Caleb Schweiss, with music and editing by Joseph DeGollier, parodies and clips from their respective authors, of course. You can get all of our episodes as well as our Let's Plays at ultimafinalfantasy.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, as well as our contact page on our website. Be sure to subscribe and review our podcast. Your reviews may get read on the show, and look forward to the next episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast.